appeals. We're not going to let some guy from Gladwin change the way we do business. The judge made an error, and they called him a, quote, sympathetic judge, unquote. And then they filed an immediate appeal. There's a problem with that. In order to file an appeal from that injunction, you must file what are called post-trial motions. It's a legal term. All it says is, all it really means is, you have to first tell the judge how he made his mistake. What did he do wrong? So that the judge could then fix it, right? If he made a mistake and he believes that what you told him is, or what he said in his opinion is wrong, he should be given an opportunity to fix it before you file an appeal. They didn't do it. That's fatal to the appeal. And for that reason, when they appealed to the Commonwealth Court, first thing I did was file a motion to dismiss the appeal. Hey, they didn't file a post-trial motion. He didn't give the judge a chance to change his mind. And so the Commonwealth Court threw their appeal out. That was legal malpractice on the part of the school district's lawyers. They then filed what's called a motion for a hearing on bond. That means we're asking not 3 judges of the court, but the entire court to decide that issue, and the court denied that as well. Not satisfied with that, 2 black eyes, they decided to file something before the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. It's in the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, you don't have an automatic appeal for this kind of case. You have to ask for permission to appeal. And they did that. And they violated all the rules of civil procedure. They were 22,000 words over the word limit. They were, I mean, you could not have believed it unless you saw it. And then they called the Commonwealth Court, which, by the way, happens to be one of the few best courts in this state. They called them revolutionaries for throwing their appeal out. That should endear them to the Supreme Court. So anyway, so that's where we are today. We're waiting for the Supreme Court, I hope, to throw out their appeal, at which time we then have to go back to Judge Smythe and say, Judge Smythe, these guys owe us about $8 million just on the 2016-17 tax increase, and we'd like you to have them pay it back to us. Okay, fast forward. One would think that after you get an opinion that basically says you're a bunch of crooks, that somebody with common sense would sit down and say, you know what, maybe we should fix this. Maybe we should conduct ourselves in a different way, go to what's called accurate budgeting instead of this surplus budgeting, as other districts who heard about the opinion have already done, and just try to make peace with the taxpayers of Lower Merritt. Okay, I was hoping for that. However, not here. Colonial School District, which is our neighboring district over in Conshohocken, Plymouth Meeting, they immediately went to accurate budgeting. That's what they're doing right now. In fact, in their budget book, it says, we will only tax for what we need. Really good. Good idea. Makes sense, follows the law. Not Lower Merritt. So what happened? 2017-18, I'm sure you got your tax bill. And what they averaged, they went to the state, and they said, we need a tax increase, not of the index, which is 2.5%, right, for that year. We need up to 3.8% to pay our bills. Okay. And then, as time went on, you saw that number come down, right? It went from 3.8 to something lower than that, and then it went to 2 something. And then the night of the tax vote, they went down to 2.4% and congratulated themselves for being so controlled, if you will, in their tax increase for the ensuing year that they're now below the index of 2.5%. How nice. Except for one thing. It was all a lie. Let me explain. When a school district has a surplus, it is required in the next year to reduce the millage rate Don't ask me to explain what a millage rate is. I don't know what it is till this day. I don't want to know. Except I know that it's bad for me and good for them. So, bottom line is, they're supposed to reduce that rate so that next year's taxes are lower. We talked about that. They never did that for the 10 years prior. So every tax increase for the 10 years before we went to court was illegal. Because you got to reduce the millage. They never reduced the millage. So if you put a tax increase based on the old millage that's not reduced, what is it? Higher than it's allowed to be. Okay. Simple arithmetic. They obviously don't get it. They need a new arithmetic teacher over there. Bottom line is, after Judge Smythe said the tax increase was illegal and you had to reduce it to 2.4%, what did they do for the 2017-18 tax increase? They never reduced the millage. So, the 2.4% tax increase that we are now enjoying is actually 4.5%. They lied to us again. And they never got authority from the state for a 4.5% tax increase. The entire tax increase of 2017-18 is illegal. All of it. Now, when I saw what they did, or better said didn't do, I wrote to the tax collector. And I said to him, you know, every check for taxes, by the way, I included my tax check. And I said, every check you cash for the 2017-18 tax increase is a fraud on the voters and the taxpayers of Lower Merion, and it's a crime. You could go to jail for this. Well, you can imagine the letter I got from township lawyers. What are you trying to do? Create chaos? You know, and the answer is, I'm not trying to create chaos. I'm trying to tell them they're violating the law and they're lying to us. And the judge just found them illegally doing that for the 10 years prior. How are they continuing to do it? Now, the result of that was the following. The school district now has in escrow all of the extra money from the 2016-17 illegal tax increase. So when we get an order, the money will be there to get our tax refunds. And I made them put the 2017-18 illegal tax increase in an escrow account as well. So when this whole thing is over, if we're lucky, and the law is followed by everybody who has to follow it, we should be getting a tax refund for the increases now for 2016, 17, 2017, 18. Now let me give you, at the risk of overstaying my welcome, let me tell you a few interesting facts. The law firm that represents the school district has represented them for a very long time. They're very well known in Montgomery County. They represent a lot of school districts. And at one of the school district meetings a few weeks ago, maybe it's a month ago, maybe that was one of the last two. But anyway, the chairman said we're going to rehire this law firm because their retainer is $12,000 a year. And I said, wow, that's really great. $12,000 a year, you get a law firm that represents the school district. That is a bargain. Knowing at all times that last year, for example, they were paid $900,000. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Let's say you're a business. And in your business, as a routine matter, you're paying a lawyer $1 million a year. What does that tell you about the way that business conducts its business?
Of our taxpayer dollars.
I beg your pardon?
With our taxpayer dollars.
That's right, all their taxpayer dollars. And that $900,000 isn't just last year's money. If you take a look at the budget, it's online, you will see it's in a continuous amount of money. What are they spending the money on? I'll tell you what they're spending it on. Not this litigation, by the way, which is covered by insurance. But they're litigating every single special ed case. And so what's happening is that in order to defeat special education requirements that parents would prefer for their kids, I certainly understand that, the school district, rather than try to reach an accommodation, litigates them all. So it puts the parents in a jam, puts the school district in a jam, and if you start taking millions of dollars each year for years and years and years, you can give a lot of special ed kids a lot of very, very good care. So the bottom line of the story is, my argument to the school district is, you ought to have your legal fees by way of competitive bid. Maybe there's some law firm, and I know there are, law firms out there who would be certainly happy to get $500,000 a year to litigate those cases instead of $1 million a year. The law does not require them for legal services to use competitive bidding. So what they do is they just keep on paying. Now, a couple of other interesting facts. When I filed the original lawsuit, again, it was designed to, in my view, correct some horrible things that I had seen. It's all started 10 years ago when I was at a school board meeting. They had raised taxes 10%. And there was a man from Belmont Hills, I will never forget him. He walked up and he said, if you keep raising our taxes 10% a year, I'll have to move. And the chairman said, well, then you have to move. Look, I grew up in the streets in Philly. No one's ever going to say that to anybody that I can help. So that's what really started all this, at least in my view. So when I started to get into this, as I started to have time, I realized there were some things that were grotesquely offensive about the way this school district operated. Let me give you an example. When I filed the lawsuit, I purposely did not sue the school directors. I sued the monolith, the Lower Merion School District, right? Because there are people who work for free as school directors, and whether or not you like what they have done, it's not like they're evil, it's just that they're misguided. So I didn't sue them. What kind of response do I get from the school district's lawyer? I have failed to sue an indispensable party, which would be all the school directors. So the lawyers for the school district are saying I should sue the school directors. Now get this one. The school directors then hire a law firm, not the law firm provided by their insurance company, which pays $170 an hour for legal time. They decide to hire Ginger, Biddle, and Reed to represent them personally, people I have not sued. We go to a meeting. The chairman said, Ginger, Biddle, and Reed will charge us only $495 an hour to represent the school directors. Okay, that's a reasonable charge for a big law firm. But what they didn't tell us was that was for the young partner. The big shot partner gets $695. The two associates get $395 each. So we're getting billed $2,000 an hour by Drinker, Biddle, and Reed to represent people I never even sued. How much has that cost us? Think about it for a second. $300,000 to represent people I didn't sue. Now, okay, if you're a school director and you want to hire a private law firm, you don't want to use an insurance company, is it fair that you pay for it? I mean, come on. You have insurance to pay a lawyer, so let that insurance company pay the lawyer, and if you don't like what he does for you, then hire somebody to protect yourself, even though you're not a defendant in the case. They got the school district to pay the bill. We are paying a legal bill for people I didn't sue and who were suggested should be sued by none other than the lawyers for the school district. Explain that one to me. It is beyond insane. It is theft, in my opinion. It's theft. So, now, that's the lawsuit that was originally filed. When I saw that they were going to raise taxes, I filed a petition for injunction. That's the one that we have the opinion on from Judge Smythe. It's on the Then I saw what they did in 2017-18, I filed another petition. And that was to enjoin that tax increase and to get us that money back. They admitted everything. What they said was, we don't have to follow Judge Smythe's opinion. We can do what we want. And so there is a motion outstanding on that. So that's 3 lawsuits that I filed. Now, what's the fourth? The fourth and last one is the one to remove the school directors. Because quite frankly, I've had it up to here with their arrogance. You can't be found to have violated the law as a matter of fact and then violate the law again simply because you're on appeal. That's not how it works. In addition to that, they never appealed the judge's decision on the facts. So his decision that they violated the law, the decision that they overstated expenses and understated revenues, the decision that said that they had not complied with the Taxpayer Relief Act, that is not on appeal. So that doesn't mean you can simply ignore it and continue to violate the law. So I filed that petition. That petition requires special procedure. At least 10 people to sign as petitioners, 3 of whom must sign, they call them affiants, people who will swear to the facts. We have 18, thanks to Jim Doran, who is the president of the Glavin Civic Association, sitting over there. Jim is the first name on the petition, just so I can give him proper credit, so he can be humiliated if we lose. But that's right, you won't be living in Glavin long, Jim, it's okay. But anyway, the bottom line of the story is that it would be helpful to have other people who are offended by this to join in. We have a signature sheet in the back. This is a legal proceeding, no cost to you, and if there's any kind of cost associated with it, I'll pay them. I don't want any money from anybody. This is a public service that I'm doing, which brings me to the last thing I wanted to say. I started this as a public service. I expect no compensation. I've asked for no compensation. I will accept no compensation. I've incurred significant costs. I want none of them back. I've not asked for any, and I never will. If there is a tax refund to me, it'll go to a needy Philadelphia public school, to a graduate of those institutions. This project of mine is about good government. We have to start somewhere. And if it's from the bottom up, so be it. And if I'm the guy who has to bite the bullet to do it, I'm happy to do it. It's for all of us. It's for my neighbors. It's for my friends. It's for our children. It's to set an example that good government is an absolute necessity. And with any kind of luck, we'll get there.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that education. And you don't mind taking some questions, correct? So I guess we'd like some questions, and we will start with the first one I saw going up, which is the gentleman here. And again, I am going to ask everybody to ask questions that don't get into, well, you know what I mean. So let's start with the gentleman.
If you're successful in your lawsuit, do you envision that the money will come back to the taxpayers as a check or be applied towards the following year's tax bill?
Well, I would think that what will happen is the district will go to the court and say that we really need the money for our new school, and that therefore we can't return the money in kind, or we can't return the money, we have to return it in kind, so credit against future taxes. I would argue very strenuously against that, at least for the 2 years that where I've been involved in the lawsuit. Now, the question is how much of the $60 million would be returned? And I could see that nightmare scenario happening with the district saying, well, we have several hundred more students, we're overcrowded, we need to modify schools, we need to build a new school, things of that nature. Now, remember, I don't know if you read it in the paper recently, the school district has said that we're going to ask for a referendum about the new school. Remember that? Now, here's the problem with that. Remember we talked about the electoral debt, the electrical expense? Electoral expense. Shocking, isn't it? Bottom line is that the reason for that isn't because they want to be good guys. The reason for that is so they can add it to your tax increase. So here we thought they were, seeing the light. They're not. They just operate in the dark.
So I assume that 60 million surplus, there's interest paid on that bit. So what happens will
Well, remember,
You gotta repeat the question.
They can't hear.
You must repeat the question.
the question is that I assume that with all that $60 million in the bank somewhere, there's got to be interest. What happens to all that interest? Well, anybody who's got any money in the bank today knows that there isn't much interest on that money. It's probably a percent, maybe 1.25% if they're lucky. So I'm not sure they're getting so much, but it is, again, at the end of the day, if you have $60 million in the bank and if you only get 1.25% on it, it's not small change. The reality is that that interest is measured, let's see, at 60 million is 1%, so you're talking about really small amounts of money that really don't mean much. I'm less concerned about getting interest on the money than I am about getting the money back. I think the lesson to be learned in this case, for this district and others would be, if they're forced to return real money, then that's going to change the way school districts do business throughout this county. Now, it's less important to us because we like to check in our pocket here, but it's important to us as Pennsylvania citizens that everybody do the same thing.
So if you read their SEC filings, they have one set of enrollment numbers. If you go to their public events and look at the budget they submit to the state, they have another whole set of enrollment numbers.
Correct.
Have you gotten to the bottom of which set are true, and have the authorities for whichever sovereign they're lying to decided to start looking at that?
First of all, none of them are true. There are actually 3 more studies that were done at our expense, huge expense on that, and probably the 3 studies, probably $1 million. And each one of those studies shows a different enrollment pattern. Some show significant enrollment patterns in the elementary schools, obviously, and we all know that there have been increases there. That's why there's pressure on the existing elementary schools and those folks who live near those schools with regard to the temporary classrooms and all that kind of thing. That really does have to be addressed. But what has happened in the past has been this. According to what they supplied the SEC, after 2020, enrollments will be going down. Now, I don't know how they figure that stuff, but the way I think about it is that if a youngster goes to, say, elementary school today, in 5 or 6 years, he's out of elementary school, right? He goes to middle school, and so therefore, the population of the elementary school then goes down. This happened in the past. Believe it or not, the current population of the Lower Merion School District is actually less today than it was, I think it was about 25 years ago. Those folks who lived here maybe know better than we.
I think it was 1968 where we had 10,000 students.
Yeah, right. And they
10,000
built,
in public school years.
and they built 3 new elementary schools. And then obviously after not a long period of time, but a period of time, because the kids grew up and the families got a little older, those schools were no longer necessary. They wound up selling them for virtually nothing. They're now office buildings. As I checked into them to see, one is the French school, as I recall it, another is an office building. And I actually went around and looked at those to see if I could say, well, gee, why don't you take one of the schools you built unnecessarily before? But see, that is what's going to happen here. We're going to see $100 million spent. And in 5 or 6 years, you're going to see that school that's 1/3 empty. Then what are you going to do? You're going to be in debt, $100 million. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so by sitting out fraudulent tax bills, aren't you committing mail fraud and that?
Yeah, I agree with all that. You know, I really believe that there are crimes that have been committed here. The one crime that really troubles me, I must tell you, and I don't know why they are not concerned about that. Maybe that's the reason they hired Drinker, now that I think about it, because the judge essentially said he committed mail fraud. But here's a crime that really bothers me. The school district, as you know, supplies laptops to the kids. Wonderful thing. Uniformity, all the kids have the same laptop, the same software, everything else, great thing. You may recall a commotion some years ago where it was found that they had spyware on those laptops, and that spyware worked like this. The district could turn on the computer, take pictures of your kids doing their homework in their various states of undress that at least my children and others that I've seen were, you know, they're in their underwear, or they're in whatever they are, right? They took 60,000 pictures without your knowledge, without the kids' knowledge. And then the computer does what? It automatically shuts itself down and erases the fact that it took those pictures. So they had 60,000 pictures of our children, our homes, everything about us in their possession without our knowledge. Now, one of those kids' families filed suit against the school district, and they paid $600,000 to that family. Now, I sued them for doing that in the original lawsuit I filed. Because here's how I feel about it. As a parent, as a citizen, a member of this community, how dare they? How dare they take pictures of our children? How dare they take pictures inside our homes? And be smug about it and arrogant about it. They have no right to do that. That's wiretapping. That's a violation of the federal wiretap law and the state wiretap law. That's wrong. And I want the administrators who conceived of that sick notion to be fired. They're still working there. Now, let me tell you about the computers today. Knowing how arrogant they are, knowing that simply paying money wasn't going to change the picture, I hired a forensic computer expert. Do you know there is still spyware of a different type on the kids' computers? Now, I can't tell you exactly what it is because we're not there yet. But if there is criminal spyware on those computers, I will not rest until these people go to jail. This is wrong.
What your thoughts are on this auxiliary issue?
On the what?
On this auxiliary issue, it seems that there are many, large numbers of students coming into the township. And they do not buy properties to be property tax payers. They go into apartments. And our taxes go up so much that it's hard to sell a home in Lower Merion County.
It's very interesting you said that. I want to tell you that I have had meetings with township commissioners about this because I said to them, look, you keep approving new apartments for the township, not just 20 or 30, hundreds, 1,000 new apartments in the last few years. First of all, I said to them it changes the entire character of the Main Line, and I think that we as citizens of the Main Line have at least some property right in having some sense of what this place is about that caused us to want to move here. The second thing is that they have taken those steps to have the developers pay any money to the school system to help defray the cost of educating the children who will come into these apartments. And of course, the commissioners, to a man, have said to me, man or woman, have said to me that, well, we've been assured that these are apartments for elderly folks over 50. Well, first of all, if you're over 50, that doesn't make you elderly. I'd like to give you the second part about it is that that's baloney. I mean, come on. I mean, people are going to go into apartments. They're going to bring as many kids as they can. in the smallest possible apartment they can, because they can get into one of the best school systems in the state. And that's going to cost all of us money. I want to tell you how much money. We spend $31,000 a child, $31,500 now, a child. The highest per capita cost of education of any school district in the state, and most every school district in the nation. We have the highest paid teachers in the nation.
They want more.
Yes, we have the highest cost per square foot of school buildings in the nation. And they want to keep increasing that cost. It's just mind-boggling. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Can I just ask, so with the apartments, though, I understand that they're building on the students and who knows who handles. But those property owners of those apartments and that land are paying taxes.
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
nowhere near the taxes that would be paid if they were not apartments, number one. And number two, if you think of the population, if you take that space that the apartments are built on, right, that land, and if that were, let's say, single-family dwellings, you might have 10 children. Where you have 600 apartments, you may have 250 kids.
But the value of those apartments is much higher than 10 houses.
Well, yes, there's no question about it,
Yes.
but it does not compute. For example, one child over 12 years in the school system, that's $31,000 times 12, right? That if it stayed at the same rate now. I'm one of the most vociferous opponents of this lawsuit. This is a great story, and I'll tell it to you quickly. She has this group together to oppose the lawsuit. I understand, everybody's entitled to their opinion, certainly. And she's in favor of the taxes. She said, look, I've had 5 children, and they all went to lower grade school. So for her, taxpayers have given her a tax-free gift of $1,800,000 over those 12 years. And that's okay, that's what the public school system is designed to do, that people share the cost of education. So when she had only one child in the system, did she assume her fair share of taxes? No, she had her taxes reduced. So she's now paying about 25% less property taxes than she should be. So after her kids were educated at our expense, she's not willing to help others educate their kids. It's really unfair. We already know that the whole system of property taxes to support public schools is fundamentally unfair because number one, it's a mystical funding formula. What happens is the schools don't know really how much they're going to get, and they have to beg for what they're going to get, and they have to plan for what they're going to get. There are better systems out there. I don't know which ones they are, but there was a statute in the state legislature that was going to raise the sales tax and another tax, I can't remember what it was, to fund schools with state-paid taxes. The problem with it, and probably the reason it didn't pass was it had exceptions. We would have been in that exception group. School systems with debt would have an exception. So we would have been paying the higher sales taxes, the higher income taxes, and the real estate taxes. So I'm kind of glad it was put aside. But I agree with you. You're right on all those things that you mentioned. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have an estimated timeline going forward for opinions or court actions leading to a resolution?
Well, I'm hoping to hear from the Supreme Court tomorrow, but I don't think it'll be tomorrow, but I mean that soon, where it's time that they do decide what they're going to decide. Now, if you read in the paper that they decided to take the case, no worries. No worries. Because if they decide to take the case, what I will attack is the index. Because remember, the index is used by school districts as a given. In other words, they get $9 million or $7 million every year, no matter what. The index doesn't say that. If they don't need the money, they should not even be getting the index. Yes, ma'am.
So it seems like you've done a lot of the number crunching. How much of the 31,000 actually goes to the education of the child?
56%, according to the numbers that have been done by people smarter than me, which is the lowest per classroom expenditure of any school district in the state.
And where does the standing below area on that scale for all the money that's being spent, the education versus the others?
Well, it has been getting lower. I believe it's number 4 in the state now, at 400 in the nation. Used to be much higher than that. Yes, ma'am?
So I hear from the Supreme Court, whether or not they're going to take the case or not take the case. Well, at that point, will they make the decision on whether or not, the school board is liable? And will they hold them accountable at that point, or no?
It's a good question. You see, the real issue, think about it for a second. The real issue that's before the Supreme Court at the moment is, should the Commonwealth Court have heard the appeal? Because it dismissed the appeal. So the Supreme Court could say, after all this time, we think the Commonwealth Court should hear the appeal. I will tell you, the reaction from the judges in the Commonwealth Court was that they were able to dismiss it because they didn't like the school district's position. So that they went on record with dismissing the appeal, and they put a footnote, it's footnote 6, it says that we have the authority and did exercise it to determine if there was any illegal, whether the decision of Judge Smythe was a violation of the law. So they sent a message. The message was, we think Judge Smythe was right, and we're dismissing your appeal. So, yes, sir. Back
It's
there.
pretty obvious this is not a fair fight and they're all crooks. What other tactics are we considering? You know, we reached out to Betsy. Can we get a Twitter storm going? What other non-legal tactics are we adopting in this whole battle? Because these days it's really about persuasion and deception as much as it is about legal.
There's an election on November 7th. The best thing to do is vote them out.
That's also the
That might be a better solution.
yeah, we know what we're doing.
That's the basic question, but what do you think the school board's motivation is to have a surplus?
It's a question that comes up every time, and I believe me, I've asked myself that question repeatedly. People have told me that it's a function of power, and that they feel they can exercise power over others, and this is why they do it. I can't answer that because I'm not into their heads, but that's what others tell me.
It's $5 billion across the station.
5 billion?
Surplus. School districts have accumulated across the state.
Yeah. We're going to change all that. That's going to change.
Have you referred any of your work to any local, state, or federal agency for further investigative action?
No, because I want to win first. I want to win on the appellate level first. I want to put them in a position where they can't attack anymore what has been established, and then I will do that. I intend to do that.
Arthur, I'm Liz Havey, I'm the chair of the Republican Party. I have 3 boys in the public school. And I receive, if you're a public school mom, you receive the PR spin from the schools that has been very harsh on you personally and has made it out to be like you want to take, funding away from kids who have special ed needs. And I thought, here's an opportunity for you to explain to everybody what this is about. And, if one of the things maybe you could do is, could you enjoin them from the spin? Could you do something that says, hey, you're not allowed to do this PR, and they were supposed to, I know, post the actual opinions to the parents, they never sent it, and we requested them to do it, and they never did. But is there a way that they can stop fudging, and they're using our emails, which we have to give them, to communicate with teachers, from using that to the detriment, to attack you or the lawsuit?
Well, the problem with that is the concept of prior restraint, where you can't prevent somebody from exercising their right to provide their opinion. And I'm not sure that would be successful on my part. I realize they've attacked me personally. Believe me, I've had a death threat. I've had all kinds of stuff. But I will tell you, one of the things that drives me, I have not gotten one piece of hate mail from anyone in Lower Merion or North. Not one. I've gotten the letters and cards of encouragement. I get one a week. from someone, but the bottom line of the story is, so that, that really kind of drives me to keep on working on this thing, because I only got one piece of hate now was from some kid in the high school who said that because of me, he wasn't going to be able to be involved in his basketball team. I was going to remove funding from basketball. So I met with he and his father, and they apologized, because his father apologized to him. But the bottom line of the story is, again, I finished where I began. It's not about reducing their funding. It's reducing their surplus. Every dime that they need for every program that they want or need or would like to have is untouched by this lawsuit. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm Commissioner O'Neill, for those of you who I haven't yet met, and I just wanted to thank you because the dialogue that we have shared about this issue really has been honest and fruitful, and I know that you've met with any number of us on this. I also want to applaud you for the way that you presented the material this evening to all of us who represent a wide variety of diverse viewpoints on it. And I wanted just to talk for 1 second about the data points with respect to those new students coming in and where they're actually living. There are a variety of ways of looking at it. The data that I believe in and that I have shared with my colleagues and Arthur as well is really 3 sources. One is that we have a reduction of over 30% of students no longer attending private schools. They've been enrolled in the public school system, so that's bearing on numbers. We have a new housing stock, so new families are moving in to houses in our township, and those older residents are either moving out of the township because they cannot afford it, or are downsizing to the new developments that are coming in as high-density properties. And those are really the 2 major distinctions that has been touched on, and just wanted to thank you again for reaching out to us, and as a commissioner, I really valued our conversations, so thank you.
I appreciate that. But why do you think folks are moving out? They're moving out because they can't afford the increase in school taxes, and that's not fair. You should not have to leave your home because the school district is out of control.
And the public schools that are moving to the private schools are putting in publics?
Privates are putting into
Private publics, because the public schools are becoming private schools.
Well, but wait a minute, it's even worse. I didn't mention this before, but I will now. Private school enrollment is down 5% in Lower Merion. I guess there isn't one in Norfolk, but there is, it's a total of 5%. You know why? Because as parents have explained to me, we can't afford to pay these outrageous public school taxes and also send our children to private school where we prefer to send them. But the thing that hurts me more than that is the parents who tell me that they can't afford to send their children to religious school because their taxes are so high. That is not fair. Is that enough?
Thank you very much, Arthur. I really appreciate it very much. And thank you to everybody for wanting to hear more about this, so at least we're properly educated, and now everybody can go home and think about it all, I guess. So thank you again and again. Anybody who's interested in taking a membership form and